All right, everyone. You know that I'm interested in things like magic and certain cryptids and things of that nature. But when I saw this story, I was like, come on, dude. Seriously? You're going to pretend that this is a goddamn UFO? Pro tip, it's not a UFO. There are a couple of explanations that I think fit a little bit more readily. The Buga spear found down in Colombia, supposedly found. Let me tell you something about stage magic, which might be applicable in this case. It's called a Confederate. Not Confederate as in the South during the Civil War. A Confederate is somebody who is secretly working with the stage magician or other person doing tricks or whatever. So what you do is you say, I need a volunteer to come up here and I'm gonna magically cut your head off or something like that. One of the people working with you, one of your employees, is in the crowd. And of course, they wave their hand. Or if they're having a really bad day and want to quit, they don't raise their hand. And then the stage magician would be real fucked in the ass sometimes, depending on the trick. And so they call them up preferentially, and then they proceed with whatever trick they're doing. I have a feeling that the individual that found this magical sphere of metal probably was a Confederate the entire time. I have a feeling this is part of one of two things. An elaborate art project, which is great. I mean, it is highly decorative. Hell, I would love to mount one of those in my home. Or some rich eccentric decided to troll the nation of Colombia and accidentally ended up trolling a bunch of other Westerners as well. One of those two things is true. This is of terrestrial origin. It is not a UFO. It does not come from outer space. This can be determined by a series of very, very simple tests. You're going to need to get some metallurgists and geologists in there, and then they can probably tell you where the metal came from. I suspect it is of terrestrial origin. I also suspect the possibility that it has to do with Colombia wanting more tourism. Let's put it that way. To put it bluntly, governments sometimes do this. There have been other instances of this happening, by the way. Happened at the Vermont Teddy Bear Company, actually, up near Burlington, here in Vermont years ago. There were all sorts of news reports. Oh my God, a UFO crashed right next to the Vermont Teddy Bear Company. It was like a ruined flying saucer. Well, they did it as a prop. And all of a sudden, a million people are showing up in the general region, and it made them a lot of moolah. It was, by the way, a fun prank. It was funny at the time. So this happens fairly regularly. You look at those obelisks that have been set up, those little black statues and stuff like that, the metal rods sticking out of the dirt and so forth. These are either art displays, tourist related, or in some cases, of course, some rich eccentric just decided to troll, just for shits and giggles. And imagine you had Elon Musk levels of money. Wouldn't it be funny to set up a UFO sort of thing where you have a fairly realistic looking flying saucer, maybe even with dead little aliens? You could use those Stretch Armstrongs, grab a couple of them, get the goo out of them, and have the goo dripping all over the console or something like that. For a few $1 million, you control the entire world. Sounds fun, actually. I would love to do something like that if I had the money. You'd have to have real fuck you money to do it, but it would be hilarious anyway. You'd have to work with the local city or something and say, hey, I want permission to dig this into the ground at night when no one's around. And then we'll have a couple of Confederates find, this supposed UFO. Bring a lot of tourism to your country and to the province. So, you should probably greenlight it. It'll be hilarious. That's probably what's happening here. We've seen it before. I have a feeling you're going to find that this is of entirely terrestrial origin. Some artist might come out and claim credit for it and say, haha, gotcha. Some rich person might do the same thing. Or maybe the government keeps stringing it along. If they do string it along and say, well, we cannot determine the origin of this metal, that's the government's doing then. They decided they wanted extra tourism there from UFO aficionados and stuff like that. I can assure you, Extraterrestrials avoid this planet particularly like the goddamn plague. It is surrounded by a death shroud of pollen and viruses and bacteria and fungus and all sorts of other nasty things. It's surrounded by a death shroud that extends out into the heliosphere, dude. They probably can't get within a trillion miles of this planet without the risk of infecting something, based on asteroids and stuff like that that might carry biological material out into space in plumes. Um, yeah, there's no possibility that alien life forms would be, if they're interstellar, they would be intelligent enough to know it's not a good idea to go near the planet. We have to think about that ourselves. If we ever become interstellar and you find a habitable planet, that's great. Now, there's life and water and all of these wonderful things. If you get too close, literally just plumes of material jetting out into space because of impact from asteroids could literally kill you. So it would probably be a one-way journey. It wouldn't be a two-way journey. You might survive, you might not. The world may never know, and probably won't. So the Buga sphere this is not a UFO. This is an art piece or an elaborate trolling attempt or tourist opportunity. One of those three things is absolutely 100% true. That's about all. Peace out.